Good afternoon, guys. Welcome. You're just going to wait a few moments here for some more people to join, and then we'll get this thing kicked off. And don't mind the raging thunder if you can hear it. All right. Looks like we have a good majority of people today. So let's get it started. Good afternoon. My name is Jacob Heath. I'm an account manager here with CompuWorks. Today is Microsoft Visio, something that I'm actually personally excited to learn about. I've tried it once and didn't understand it too clearly. I went to Microsoft Word and did what I had to do, but I have the application and it's so nice to use for flowcharts. There's such a nice graphic for depicting a process and having a good visual there. So it's something that I'm personally going to use and I'm pretty excited to do so. Don't forget about our next upcoming event. It's Microsoft Word Beyond the Basics, and that's coming September 27th at 1 p.m. And you can register in advance. So be sure to check that out. It's going to be a good one for anybody looking to get a little bit deeper onto their Word basics there. Anyone who hasn't been in one of these webinars, you can use the Q&A button at the bottom right next to the chat button, or you can use the chat button as well for any questions you might have. We'll try and get to as many questions as we can during the webinar, but if we don't make it to you, we will designate some time afterwards to get some questions answered as well. So definitely don't worry there. Typically, we follow up with a survey to get your feedback on ideas for future topics. We really appreciate the feedback. It usually comes about a day after the webinar, so be on the lookout in your inbox. And before our presentation begins, I just want to introduce to you CompuWorks' founding partner, Alan Baumann.
Thanks, Jacob. And yeah, I'm with you on Vizio. It's funny because I've used Vizio for years, but I only use it once in a while. So I never really feel like I've quite figured it out. I always feel like I'm sort of fumbling my way through it. But it is a pretty cool program, and I'm excited to hear what Chris has to say. And so I'm happy to welcome back Chris Stone. Chris has been with us in the past. He's a fantastic instructor, real deep knowledge of everything Microsoft, especially 365, all the Microsoft applications. He's a real expert in, so I always like to hear Chris's perspective. He's got a bachelor's of commerce degree and has been teaching and consulting since 2007. And we're happy to have him back. So welcome, Chris.
Thank you so much, Alan. And thanks for joining us, everybody. I'm going to drop out the slides now here because if you've taken one of my sessions before, you know that I am not a big slide person. I like to show you guys how this stuff actually works for real. And yeah, today we're here to talk about Microsoft Visio. We're going to start by talking about the pricing and the plans available for Visio. This is not something that's kind of included for everybody. And so I want to talk about what you can get around Vizio, what the costs look like, and when the licenses are even needed, because not everybody's going to need a license for it necessarily. Once we've talked about the admin pieces, we'll actually dive into playing with Vizio. I'm going to show you how to create Vizio diagrams, and we'll learn more about the actual software, and then I'll work through some examples around various things that organizations will like to see out of this, things like an org chart for your staff or a network diagram. And that'll all make more sense once we dive a little bit further into Visio. Just to kind of set the bar here, and Jacob and Alan both did a great job of this. Microsoft Visio is a visualization tool generally around things like flows, organizations, network diagrams, stuff like that. And we'll see more of that in a second, but the main concept is to take data that you've got and put it into a visual format for users to consume. That could be, you're pushing something up to management. That could be that you're pushing something out to staff so they have a better understanding of how things are laid out. But at the end of the day, it's really to take data and make it more accessible for people, easier to understand, so that when they read it aren't, looking at a Word document that's just, 5 pages long, and they're trying to figure out how things relate to each other, or they're not looking at this giant table in Excel and trying to, again, figure out how things are relate to each other. Visio is going to make that visual, and it's going to relate things in a way that people are good at understanding it. Now, when it comes to Visio, we really have two options these days. There is a web-based version of Visio, so Visio Online, and we'll play with that, initially. This is, if you've got a Microsoft 365 subscription, this is something you can add on to a user's account for $5 a month. It gives them the online version. The online version has quite a bit of the functionality of the desktop version. For a lot of organizations, that's going to be more than enough. If you want to just create an org chart, for 40 people in your organization, more than enough. If you want to set up a couple of diagrams for some business processes you've got running, it'll be more than sufficient for that. And I'll show you some of those differences in a minute here. But the web-based version, $5 a month, you get access to it here, and then you can spin up a flow chart, or spin up an org chart, or spin up a network diagram, whatever it is that you want to create in there. The second option is for especially larger organizations where you've got large amounts of data, and you need that data to be connected to the flowchart so that as it updates, things can be, updated automatically. The Visio on the web is more about you doing it manually. The Visio on the desktop, of course, there's a lot more than just this, but the big selling feature for Visio on the desktop is that, say you've got an Excel document that's coming out automatically out of one of your systems with, a list of customers, or a list of processes, or a list of employees. You can have that auto-generate Visio diagrams based on that data, and auto-refresh it. As people in your organization change, you pop in, you hit refresh, and it redoes the org chart for you without you having to drag names around. So there's some automated benefits with that that can definitely help you if you want to do that. Plus, you get some more fancy colors and better boxes and charts. We'll see some of those in a second here to do that. I'm going to start by just showing you what this looks like from a template. So I'm going to go to Visio on the web, and this is just part of my Office 365, right? Here's all my standard stuff. I've got my OneDrives and my Excel and my Word and all of this here. I could get to Outlook or whatever. So this is just a web browser. I'm in Chrome right now, but you could be in Edge or Firefox. It doesn't matter. It's going to work just fine. I come in here, and this is kind of the main page for Visio. Here's some files that you've already got. Here's some options for templates you can go ahead and create. And, there's some basic ones here. There's also a more templates option. If you pop into that, you'll actually notice that Microsoft's been quite generous with the web version. There are tons of different options for you to do this, depending on what it is you're looking for. We're just going to start with a basic diagram here, nothing too particularly fancy, but let's do a basic flow chart here. Theater booking process, why not? Let's pretend we're a theater for the moment. I'm going to go ahead and click create. It's going to spin up my template for me to use, and I can adjust from here. Oh, thanks, Microsoft. They've got a help built into it. This is how you do it. Thanks. Great. This is what Visio actually ends up looking like for you on the web once you've actually got a chart open or a drawing open. With Visio, you've got kind of a main area where you're putting your content. On the left-hand menu here, you're going to have your shapes. So the documents or the drawings that you've got in Visio are generally going to be made up of shapes that you simply just drag onto your drawing. And then you've got the standard kind of ribbon up top here, like you'd see in most of the other Office products. If you want to undo or redo, copy and paste, change some font or formatting sizes, you can, insert some pictures. You can go into design and change the colors. If you don't like the color of the diagrams, you can go in and set it. If your organization has a set of colors, you could, pick a theme color that matches that and set that up. And, do the standard review things and view things that you would be able to do in most of the other Microsoft Office products. I'm going to zoom in on the diagram here just to take a look at this. So here's essentially a visual way of mapping out how a user journeys through the theater booking process. And again, this is just a sample. Obviously, this can apply to anything. This could be, how does a user sign up to join our mailing list? How does a user purchase one of our products? What is our warranty for our organization? What does the warranty process look like? And it just allows us to visualize that. So we've got, if user comes to the site, is the user logged in? No, they have to log in. It sends them back to the thing. Now they're logged in. They can find a theater. They find it based on city, state, and country. Find a time. They find a rate. They select it. They can reserve with a credit card, and then they can either view the reservations, go back to look at the reservations, modify, or this appears to be where most people end up in this process. The way this works, though, in terms of these shapes here, is that we can just simply drag things on. So I'm going to actually pop out of this for a second and go create a blank one, because this will make more sense for us. But the nice thing about Visio is how easy it is to use. So if I want to set one of these up for myself and I want to bring a rectangle on, I just, bring a rectangle on. And if I want to have a decision tree, I'll usually use a diamond. This is kind of the standard practice around how Visio works, is that if you've got a choice, you'll use a diamond shape around it. And the best thing about these shapes is not only can we change the shapes themselves, but we can also set up the connections between them. So if I hover over a shape here, you can see a couple of things. The first is that I've got arrows coming from each direction. And the second is I've got these little green bubbles from various directions as well. If I click to the left on an arrow, it will connect it to the shape on the left-hand side there, just like that. I can also drag manually between the green lines or between the green bubbles to do that. That's especially useful if my second thing isn't, quite in line with it, right? If I've got one down here and I click on the arrow, it's going to be like, what do I want to do? If I click the arrow and say, I want a diamond, it'll give me one, but it's not going to connect it because it wasn't right there when I did it. In that case, I can click on the bubble and say, I want to connect that point to that point. It'll give me an arrow line down indicating that I'm moving that way through this process. Now, with these shapes and with the arrows, we have a lot of flexibility. I can add these, and then once they're there, I could, for example, change the color on a specific one, right? If I wanted an orange one there, and I wanted this one to be orange as well, or maybe I want this one to be green, I can adjust the colors on these simply by highlighting them. I can even adjust the colors of the lines. If there's a bad line, maybe I want it to be red, maybe my normal process lines are blue or green, whatever I want, I can set those up there. Then within each actual shape, I can do things like type. If I just double click on it, I can set up, start of process there, and it will pop that text in. And I can double click on one down here and, decision. I can't spell decision properly, but it's there. And I can also put text labels kind of wherever I want by using the text box option up top here. So if I want, a text box down here, I'm supposed to. On those, I can pop those in, and you'll see as I'm moving these around, they'll give me these little green lines. It's really faint there. I hope you guys can see it on the screen there, but you'll see it'll try to auto snap to make things kind of fit nicely with this. And then from there, maybe bring that up a little bit. I can, drag off of that bubble again, drag off that bubble down to another thing. Oops, I didn't want that to do that. I wanted that to come all the way down to a bubble. If it's not playing nicely with you, you can force them to move usually. There we go. Just by dragging them around for yourself. I can also change the size and shape by clicking on them. I want the white bubbles. If I want to do the size and shape, not the green bubbles, that will let me, resize an item there for me to do that kind of stuff. Very, very easy. Also with the arrows, if I right click on them, I can change the way the arrows work as well. So I changed the color originally, but I can also, for example, set it up to be, a curved line, or I can set it up to be a straight line, or I can set it up to be right angled lines. I can set up different types of arrows. So this arrow flows from this one down to this one. And for a process like this, that makes perfect sense. But there's lots of situations where you want it going the other way, or maybe even both ways with your connection. It might be that, in a network diagram, for example, where you've got two computers running, you might have the data flowing back and forth between those two devices. And so having a multi-ended arrow makes more sense than a single-ended arrow. We can also change the line thickness. Is it dotted? There's lots of stuff that's possible here. Another really nice thing about this is that I can highlight a bunch of stuff and move it around, and the connectors will auto adjust for me. I don't have to redo all the connections every single time that I want to adjust something in my diagram. If I need a little bit of space to put something new in, I can simply highlight a bunch of stuff, move it out of the way, and give myself more space to work in another area here, like that. There's also kind of no limitation on the number of arrows that can come off of things. If I want to, I can have multiple things come off the same point. I can have multiple things go to the same point from different things. All of this is kind of very, very flexible here. And just like before, if I move things around, it'll auto adjust everything for me so that I don't have to worry about it. If you ever do overlap arrows, which is definitely a thing, like this, you'll notice that it does, and it's really hard to see, but it does do this little line jumpy circle. It's just an indicator that lets you kind of, again, read the chart a little bit more easily so that you can understand that these aren't, attached to each other. The lines just happen to be passing over each other. You can also, delete individual lines if you want, like that. In terms of the shapes that we've got available to us, there's an absolute ton of these. Rectangles and squares and diamonds are nice for a process, but there's absolutely tons of different shapes available as part of Visio. So here's like the basic shapes. I'm looking at the basic shapes right now. Basic shapes, and I can do a funnel. I can do stars. I can do frames. I can do a donut. Those are the basic ones, but then I can get down into, for example, arrow shapes. Maybe I've got something going on there. Maybe I've got a block arrow. Maybe I'm curving around something. Maybe there's a quad arrow. Those are the shapes in the document. And then I can click this add shapes option here, and it's going to give me a selection of groups of shapes that may be related to the particular task or activity that you're trying to put into this diagram. So these ones are mostly, process oriented, but let's say I wanted something that was a little bit more people oriented. I could add the banners shapes, for example, and I could pull in a banner here like this, and I could throw somebody's picture and name on this banner here, some name, in order to have a more person oriented one. There's rounded ones. I think there's a few more people-oriented ones as well. Call outs. Those are chat bubbles, symbols for happiness and people, stuff like that. There's stuff for business processes, matrix diagrams, circle shapes if you want to have circle diagrams, Venn diagrams if you're trying to build Venn diagrams. Maybe you're visualizing something for a customer or for a client. Venn diagram makes sense. Well, you can't do a Venn diagram in Word. You can't do a Venn diagram in Excel. What are you supposed to draw this and then scan it in for them? No, we can do this kind of thing easily in Visio. Basic org charts. We'll do this as a larger example a little bit later, so we're not going to get into that one just yet. Flowcharts. And cards, trees. I mean, you can see how many there are. If you're using this for IT purposes, which actually gets used quite a bit, I'm not sure if everybody's going to be into it, but if you ever want to map out all of the equipment and servers and things that your organization has, for example, you can add shapes for computers and pull in and have labels around each of these so that you can have, Joe's PC and Barb's PC and, Alan's laptop, right? And generally speaking, you're not going to map those out like this. You'd map them out into an office diagram so that you know physically where those devices are located within your office. And that's actually another type of shape that you can add, although it's more so in the desktop version than in the web version, because I don't believe they give us most of the shapes for that in the desktop version, or sorry, in the web version. So let me actually flip over to the desktop version and just give you a peek at that as well. So this is the desktop version of the software. If you pay for the $15 a month package, you get this desktop version, and you can see it looks, again, very, very similar. Shapes on the left, drawing on the right here. I can spin up a blank document. All the templates are there just in case I want them. And then with the shapes here, I have a lot more shapes available. I've got, brainstorming shapes, engineering shapes. If I'm doing electrical engineering and I want to do analog and digital logic, I can add, the shapes that actual electrical engineers will use for that kind of stuff. But in this case, I want maps and floor plans. So this is one that's not available in the web-based version, but is on the desktop version. So let's say I wanted to set up a set of cubicles in my office. I can add the cubicle shapes, and I can actually pull in the cube workstations. And if I zoom in here, I can have all of the components in my office, and I could, be like, okay, I want another one of those right here. I just copy and paste that. I'm going to drag that over here. And because we're going to be back to back, I'm going to rotate that using the rotate option up top here. So I could spin that one around like that and start laying out how my office is going to be set up, what my floor plan is going to look like for the individual users. I need to add another storage unit for somebody. I'll pop that in there. So there's some basic cubicle stuff. And then there's even more stuff with the business plans. If I need to plan out some furniture for that, I've got some chairs here, but I need a secondary chair for each of the cubicles. I'm going to pop that in there. And people actually use this to map out all of the floors of their offices so that they have, a floor plan. You don't need to get into some fancy, CAD drawings or, some sort of very advanced layout stuff. Vizio can do this if you've got the desktop version. And again, remember what I said about not everybody needing to have this. This might be, the desktop version is how I do this, but it's probably only 1 or 2 people that are actually going to need to edit this. Once it's been produced, once it's been made, generally speaking, we can then save that drawing as, a PDF or an image file and distribute it to the organization in that format so that they don't need Visio in order to look at that data. They'll consume it in a much more friendly format for them, and we'll just pay for the licensing for a couple of different people. Alan,
Hey,
you
Chris.
pulled down your mic like you've got a question there.
Yeah, I do have a question. So this is a really interesting application of Visio. I've not used this kind of thing, but I'm curious about scale here, right? I mean, all this is to scale, but how do we know what that scale is?
That's an excellent question. When I was actually creating the diagram, it gave me an option to select my scaling option, either metric units or American units, depending on what I want to set things up as. This one, I actually clicked metric units. So I'm going to flip it over to American units. And we can see that the stuff is there. If I were to add those floor plans, what did I add? Cubicles right off the bat. We can then set up the where is it here? Where did they put it? Where did they put it? There is an option to actually do the measurements. Dynamic grid. Where is it? Is it in the actual options for that one? Options. Where is it? There is an option to specify the sizes. So you could have it, for example, set to feet for this. And I've totally lost where it normally hangs out.
Just when you think you know where things are, they move them on you.
Yeah. I've definitely done this before. I'd have to look up where they've moved this option to, but oftentimes I'll adjust these guide rulers so that, you know, a foot is a foot. And you can see that, you know, this maybe is 6 or 8 feet along, although it's right now it's 1 unit of whatever this happens to be, which doesn't particularly make a lot of sense for the scale of this. But there is a scaling option. Oh, okay. If we have time at the end, I'll look up where they've moved that option for me here. Size, no. Page setup, orientation, size. No, that's the page size. I don't want that. I want the size of the rulers, which is here, but it's not. Okay, I'll look that up later. But yes, it's totally possible to scale it to actual size with this stuff if you want to. So yeah, that's what I was just talking about, you know, and everything's in here, right? If you want to set up your alarm system, like a visualization of your alarm system, there's the alarms, appliances, core building, cabinets, evidence. Actually, not sure. What? Why is there a sawed-off shotgun? I assume this is being used to map crime scenes for the police based on those shapes that just came up there. That's a little bit odd, but it's there. I've never actually been in that one before. HVAC for, you know, various heating and cooling stuff, garden accessories, indoor irrigation systems. You know, I bet you an irrigation company or a, you know, a landscaping company could use this to map out where they're going to lay all the sprinklers in somebody's yard. So that stuff totally possible in here if you want to. But again, desktop version for the mapping stuff. The if I search for furniture here, I'm not going to find anything in the web-based version. If I search for cubicle, there's nothing here in the web-based version. So you do have to have the desktop version if you want to play with those particular features there. I want to walk through an example that kind of uses 3 different ways of working with this next bit here. And this is something that almost every single organization uses, which is an org chart. And I'm going to do an org chart in 3 different ways to just show you the different possibilities that are available here with Visio. So I'm going to pop out of this diagram here, go back to the Visio main page, and I'm going to create a Visio org chart in the web-based version of Visio to start with. So I'm going to go into org chart. I'm going to, you know, start with an org chart. It will pull up. It'll have the shapes kind of pre-configured for me based on what I want. Here's my basic org chart. I could, you know, go with a metal org chart. This just puts their initials on it. You know, I could go with one that has, you know, pictures or slightly different visuals of them. I'm just going to start with the basic one here. I can pull on an executive, double click on their name. You know, we'll say Alan's in charge here. So we're going to say Alan. Am I spelling your name correctly?
Yes, you are.
We're good. I accidentally put an extra space in there. So I can pull in Alan there. And then let's say Jacob reports to Alan. Jacob is staff. So I'm going to pull in Jacob there. And I'm going to pull in Jacob Heath and Jacob's staff. And I could always change the position. Jacob's not staff. Jacob is what are you, Jacob? What was your official title again?
I'm an account manager.
Account manager. The nice thing about this is that now I can start connecting things, right? I just drag the points down like that if I want. And, you know, I probably don't need arrows for this one. So I'm just going to set it to be, you know, without arrows. Now, maybe there's multiple people that report to Alan. Maybe I want to, you know, copy and paste another person in. So I do that. And, you know, maybe we've got Susan Dobbs. She's also an account manager. I keep putting an extra enter in here for no apparent reason. There we go. And I can simply just drag it off just like that as well. And this one, maybe I want it to, I want it to pop out the side here. So I'm just going to hover drag, just like that. And again, very easy to line things up this way. If we had somebody that reported to Jacob, maybe Jacob gets his own assistant. Maybe I drag an assistant on. Maybe I don't like it being the yellow color. So I'm going to flip it over to like a lighter green color and connect, the assistant to Jacob like that. Very, very easy to do this. And at the end of the day, you save this as your org chart like that. And then when you need to come in and clean it up or change it later, it's very easy. You can come in, add another person. You can come in, change somebody's name. You could come in, you can remove something very, very easily. And then when you're done, if you can leave it as a Visio diagram, or you could, save as, and, save it as a PDF to send out to the organization, or save it as a picture, like I said, to send out to the organization. Both are available there, very easy to do. And then you can just pop that out. Now, generally speaking, if your organization has Microsoft 365, it is possible to show people Visio diagrams. They don't get edit access to them, but you don't always have to go straight to a PDF or an image. It is possible to show them a Visio diagram in a read-only mode without them having a license. So there is that option as well if you want to do that. You can just send it to them and they'll just have a read access option to it. Now, this works fine for a small organization. If your organization is, 10 people, if it's 20 people, you can generally manage people coming and going just by dragging them around, changing their names in here, no problem. It's not usually a big deal. Now, the problem comes when your organization is 100 people or 200 people. This starts to kind of break down, because then you've got somebody spending a lot of time updating the org chart all the time as people come and go from your organization. And that's where some of these other options come in. I like the desktop version of Visio. So let me go to the desktop version of Visio. And here I'm going to go create a new org chart. So let me just search for org chart. And I'm going to click org chart. And I'm going to click create. And the difference here on the desktop version is that it's going to pull up an org chart wizard. And the org chart wizard is going to ask me, hey, do you already have the data for this org chart stored in a file or a database? And it's looking for specifically things like text, Excel, Microsoft Exchange. So if you're using Outlook for your organization, if you have Microsoft 365 accounts and your Active Directory is set up with that, you can pull that data in automatically and have it generate the org chart based off of that. Or you could do it manually if you want, but generally speaking, you say, I want to pull this in automatically. I don't have this hooked up to an Exchange server right now, but you would normally just say, I want to hook it up to my Outlook Exchange directory. It'll grab the entire directory, and it will, based on, who's been set as a manager of who, it'll create your org chart for you automatically. And this is the big kind of benefit to the desktop. I remember I said that some of the stuff can be automated. This is what I was talking about. Instead of having to type in everybody's name, it just pulls the data in from a system that's already got it. And that way you can, you could drag the boxes around and change the colors, but you don't have to manually enter all of the data. And as people come and go, it can be updated automatically based on that as well. The third way that I'm going to do this is in Excel. And this is kind of between the two options. I could pull in all of it automatically from an Exchange server or something else. Maybe I don't use Exchange. Maybe our organization uses something else, or maybe our Exchange server is just not, clean and up to date, and I need something that's functional, and IT won't clean it up for me. Another option we have is Excel. Excel actually has a Visio data visualizer add-in for it. If you're licensed for Visio, the web version, not the the desktop version as well, but if you're at least optioned into the web version, you'll have access to this. You can go into Excel, and in the add-ins section on the insert tab of Excel, you can click get add-ins, and you're looking for the Visio I can't spell Visio clearly. Microsoft Visio data visualizer right there, and you can just add it to your Excel sheet. Once that's there, you can go ahead and click this Visio data visualizer option. And for example, for our org chart, I can click org chart and I get a few kind of examples of what they look like. And I go create. And what it will do is it will give you two things. It'll give you a visualization and it will give you a table of data. And this is just sample data that it creates automatically. But with this, these two things are now linked to each other, right? If I go in here and I change the director's name to Alan, like that, I can set it there. I can refresh the chart and Alan's name is updated on the chart. And this allows me to enter the data in a friendly format. If I'm doing it manually, instead of entering it directly into each box by double clicking on it and typing their name in, I can simply have a nice table set up of data here. And with that nice table set up, I can adjust various values. You know, if I wanted to add another person under this, I could say, you know, ID 14, you know, Bob Smith, title, you know, assistant to the director, manager ID, ID 1, and they're an assistant. And again, I refresh and bam, there's Bob in as an assistant to the director. So this is three different approaches to the same situation. We want an org chart for our organization. Do I just do it manually because I'm a small organization? Do I use Excel because we're starting to get into that middle number of people and it's nicer to have it kind of laid out as a chart and then just generated automatically based off of that? Or am I a large organization and there's no way we're doing this manually? We need to pull this in automatically because there's, you know, we got 400 people and nobody wants that job. So different levels, different options available with Visio there. I don't see any questions yet in the Q&A or the chat. Has anybody got any questions about any of this so far? We are effectively approaching the end of what I'm talking about here. We usually get a couple of questions that tend to slow me down a bit.
Not seeing any.
Okay. In that case, let me just show you a couple more shapes and then we'll kind of wrap this up here. For that, feel free if you do have any questions or you want to see more of anything, type that in, let me know so that we can cover that. The nice thing about having a live person for training is that I'm not a YouTube video. You can actually ask me questions and I'll respond to it. So let's go ahead and do that if we can. Other things that we didn't see here, especially around flows, things like actions in SharePoint or Microsoft Flow will often have chart types or option types available in here. If you're using SharePoint, that can be useful. Under general, nothing particularly exciting. Under icons, there's icons for everything. Animals, why not? Gotta have bugs, right? On your, you know, if you want to lay out a petting zoo, we could lay out a petting zoo. I don't know, maybe that's what your organization does. Businesses, celebration, commerce, education, food and drinks, why not? You know, laying out the beer garden for the festival we're putting on, why not use a Visio diagram for that? Again, it's processes, flows, and visualizations. Can you insert pictures into flowcharts? Absolutely, you can put pictures into, that was specifically for org charts. Let's go ahead and show that here. Org charts, where is that under here? Org charts with the cards, probably. Nope, not the cards. Which one is it? Org charts with the, there we go. Executive coin. Oh, you must open the, sorry, you have to do that in the template for the org chart. Otherwise, it doesn't like you. There we go. And let's go ahead and edit the graph. Oops, that's the graphic data. That's not what I want. I want to insert picture and grab a picture of my cat. Why not? Being weird. Okay, way too big. Nope, it didn't replace the picture there. Why didn't it not replace the picture there? Come on. There we go. Picture. Oops. Why? Where did they move that? I thought you just clicked on it and clicked insert picture. Why did they change that? There we go. There's the change picture button. Okay, there we go. Oops, that's his title. Cat. Like that. You can absolutely do that kind of thing. You're looking for, and this is the thing that I had a hard time. You used to be able to click insert and then just click on pictures and it would replace it. But you're now looking under the, oops, when you click on it, you're looking under the, now I've lost it again. Where'd it go? Under the org chart tab, under the picture section, there's a change option right there. When you're using a any of these shapes that have a picture on it, you can just change that picture to whatever it is you want. Like that. Good question. These will also work again in the desktop version, not in the web version, but in the desktop version, if you are using Active Directory and people have profile photos attached to themselves in Active Directory, you can pull those out automatically into here as well. I've seen that done before. Not everybody has that where that's set up, but I have been in organizations where everybody's got a photo in their Active Directory in order to do that. Can you create custom shapes? The answer to that is yes. Yes, you can. It's a little bit more complicated. I don't think there's just a shape button where you can do that. Stencils are sets of shapes, but there is a way to create custom shapes. I believe you actually create them separately and then you import them as a shape. But I actually haven't done that in a very, very long time. So I don't know how to do that off the top of my head, but it is possible to do. Yeah. Good question.
Really
Okay.
seeing any other questions here, Chris?
No, pretty quiet today on the question front with this. I'll stick around for a few minutes if anybody does have any questions. I see one just came in there, but maybe what I'll do is I'll pass this back to Jacob here and let him wrap this up officially, and then we will stick around and do a question period kind of after that for anybody that wants to stick around and ask any questions, if that works for you guys.
Yep, that's great.
Wonderful. All right. Well, thank you very much, Chris. That's definitely helpful. Looks like our last question coming from Andrea Hall. Can you save the Visio drawing as an image in the app version?
Yeah.
And if so, can you save multiple sheets as once?
When you say app version, you mean the desktop version there, Andrea, or the? I mean, it's possible to do them both. Under export in the desktop, you can create a PDF. You can also, save it as an image in the desktop version. I believe you can. I believe you can just pop that down and say, I want to save it as a JPEG, and it will save it as a JPEG. So when in the file thing, you just change the file type to JPEG as part of that save process in order to do that. Yeah, so definitely.
Perfect.
All right. I think that'll do it. Doesn't seem like we have any more questions here, Chris. So yeah, Jacob, what do we got coming up here?
Coming up, Word Beyond the Basics again on September 27th. And again, you can certainly register for that in advance if you'd like. I would definitely recommend it. It builds upon the last Word webinar if you were attending that one. But if not, most of us use Word and are pretty familiar with Word. So to kind of fine tune that, this is going to be a good one on September 27th. Remember that one's starting at 1 p.m. That Tuesday there. And then coming up next after that one in October is Windows 11 in introduction. That's definitely going to be a good one as well. A lot of the new devices, new laptops, new Windows devices are coming out with Windows 11 on there. I know I'm going to be upgrading to Windows 11 shortly, so certainly catch that if you're planning to upgrade as well. So those are going to be some good ones coming up. A lot of good content
already there. Windows 11. It's not too bad actually. I've been enjoying it.
Beautiful.
Nice. All right, and just sort of a final note, remember these sessions are recorded, so if you have a colleague that you think would find this interesting, you can find this at the training library on our website. Usually we get them posted within about a day or so, so by tomorrow it should be up there. We'll send out the link to the survey, and that link will also have the link to the training library as well, so pretty easy to find. But I think that'll do it. I appreciate you being here, Chris. Thanks for the great info, and thanks everybody for being here, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, everybody.